Welcome to another DFO Fantasy Show. It is Wednesday, December 3rd, and I'm your host, Brock Seguin, managing fantasy editor of dailyfaceoff.com. And today we've got fantasy hockey news and notes. Of course, we got Brock's Lock of the Day. Then we got our guy, Beebs Bondy, joining us later in the show to go over the best waiver wire pickups in standard, deep, and banger formats for Week 9 of the fantasy hockey season and beyond. But first, let's start with the news and notes. A couple quick updates today, nothing major. First, we've got Scott Wedgwood. His back tightened up a little bit yesterday. He was removed from the game for what they called an upper body injury, but Bednar said nothing serious as of now, just a tight back for Wedgwood. I would expect Mackenzie Blackwood to start their next game. Next, we've got Michael Misa, Jeff Skinner, kind of minor updates, not super fantasy relevant players at this point. Misa could work his way into fantasy relevance. The Sharks could certainly use some more secondary scoring beyond that first line. They might be available to play on Wednesday. And then we go to Florida, where Carter Verhaeghe did not take warm-ups yesterday, did not play. He is considered day-to-day as of right now. And finally, we will wrap it up with Tyson Foerster. Will miss 2 to 3 months. He's expected to undergo surgery, so tough break there for Foerster, who had really started to come on and play some pretty good hockey as of late. That's going to do it for news and notes. Let's get to Brock's Lock of the Day. And this segment is a presentation of Betway. Join the action and download the Betway app. Create an account today and enjoy our sign-up bonus. 18 plus. Please play responsibly. So yesterday, unfortunately, Cale Makar did not come through for us. And I was really torn between Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. I should have went with MacKinnon yesterday. He had like 6 shots on goal, would have blown away his prop total. So unfortunate, big loss last night with Cale Makar. We're 16-11 on the season, still up 3.5 units, 10.3% ROI. Tonight, we are going to go back to, obviously, our friends at 5v5 Hockey for our model today. And the top pick is Logan Cooley, 100% score on the model tonight. Not going to get cute with it. I'm going with Logan Cooley. As you see here on screen, Cooley has hit this mark in 9 of his last 11 games. That is an 81.8% hit rate, or the equivalent of minus 429. And tonight you get it at minus 120. So absolutely tremendous value the way he's been going as of late. He's averaged 2.5 shots on goal, 4.4 shot attempts per game during those 11 games. And tonight he faces an Anaheim Ducks team who plays extremely high event hockey. They almost seem to embrace how bad they are defensively. One of the worst defensive teams in the league. They rank bottom 12 in the league in terms of shots against and shot attempts against over the last 10 games. So really good matchup for Cooley, who's been absolutely crushing this prop as of late. So hopefully he can get us back in the win column tonight. And as always, you can place this bet on Betway. Here we go. Minus 120 over 1.5 shots on goal for Logan Cooley. That is going to do it for Brock's Lock of the Day. Without further ado, let's welcome in our friend Beebs Bondy. Beebs, how's it going, bud?
Doing good. I'm officially cat daddy, Beebs. I adopted a little cat this week. I've never been a cat guy. I have cat allergies, so we're battling. But I figured out that I'm not as allergic to this guy as we planned. So was totally expecting to come in and just have poofy eyes, but here we are. They're open. We are ready to talk about some pickups, and I think it's one of the first weeks in the last couple bits where I've actually texted Brock and be like, "Dude, can we just stick to our regular script?" Because I really like the pickups this week. Previously, we've kind of, not to pump our tires, crushed it, so they're very thin, and we don't want to repeat ourselves. But there's a couple guys who have come through the wire in the last week that are getting me a little antsy in my pants. So I love it. And without further ado, shall we?
Yeah, I told you when you bought that cat that probably cements that I will never be at your house because I just cannot be around them. Super, super allergic. But yes, I'm assuming you're pretty excited to talk about our first name today. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, no. So this is maybe my favorite player ever in the world. Oh, wait, it is. It's Gabriel Landeskog out in Colorado. Currently 41% rostered at the moment, and that's after a 2% jump overnight. So pretty hilarious that people have caught on in the last 24. But it was always anticipated that it would take a bit for Gabriel Landeskog to kind of get going. He had a well-documented surgery last year, came back for the playoffs, but it wasn't like he was just going to step back and be the 60, 70-point guy who throws hits and shoots a bunch like he was. Well, take out the first 16 games of this year where he had 4 points, and Gabriel Landeskog is back to form. The Avs captain has moved up the lineup and created a second line that is just absolutely dominant. Brock mentioned it last week when he was talking about Ross Colton. The line of Landeskog, Colton, and Nelson has just been a 5v5 dominator. It's been absolutely insane, and it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's turned into quite a bit of production for Landeskog and a boost to the top power play. When we originally did the research for this, I kind of mentioned to Brock that we have to see where Nichushkin ends up last night. I want to see, who he pushes out, what happens. Well, it turns out Nichushkin got put on the third line, which didn't touch Landeskog's minutes as well. Landeskog stayed on top power play, which is where his value stayed. Now, since Gabe's jumped over, he has 10 points in his last 10 games, 24 shots on goal, and he actually has 7 points in his last 4, which is just fantastic. It does. This isn't a fluke. It looks like old Landeskog is back. He's got 2 power play points in his last 3 games. He's thriving in that kind of just net front chaos position, which if you watch Landeskog's career, net front chaos and chaos is kind of just what he does. So, as I mentioned, I think a lot of people were hesitant after the Nichushkin news, but all that did was just stretch out Colorado's lineup. I do not personally believe that he will bump Landeskog off top power play unless it stops working. But the Colorado train is chugging right now, and I don't think anything's knocking off its tracks. And all that Nichushkin return was let's just lengthen out the lineup. So for now, Landeskog, I know a lot of people were really off on him after that 4 point and 16 game stretch, but a point per game player on a team as good as Colorado right now, and I'm gonna throw some of my roster spots at the Colorado captain for sure. Although I will say, as much as he's hit in previous seasons, not necessarily throwing the bot here for banger leagues, but that's okay. I'll give it to him since he had knee surgery.
Yeah, still 1.5 hits per game over his last 10. I think the one thing that's interesting about Landeskog going to that top power play unit was, for some reason this year, the Avs power play has just really been awful, and changing it up has worked lately. So I don't think they're going to change what's finally working. But let's get to my pickups. I took a really long look at the schedules over the next couple of weeks to determine my pickups. And the Detroit Red Wings had the most games over the next 3 weeks. They have the best combined strength of schedule for the next 3 weeks. 4 of their 11 games are on light nights, so you'll be able to get these guys in your lineup. So I got a couple of Red Wings to talk about here at different ownership levels. My first pick would be Patrick Kane, but he's only available in 63% of leagues right now. But he's been on fire as of late, picking up 11 points, only 1 goal, but 10 assists in his last 11 games, including 6 points on the power play. So Kane's 5v5 production is going to be inconsistent due to the Red Wings' lack of a consistent second-line center, but he's absolutely a lead on the power play, and the Red Wings have a great power play again this year. So he should continue that production. He should also start to score a few more goals as well. He's shooting just 5.7% right now. He has 3.2 goals scored below expected on the season, which is the 32nd worst mark in the league. So if Kane was shooting his career 11.5%, he'd be at 6 goals and 13 assists right now, which would put him over a point per game on the season, which obviously is a rarity to find on the waiver wire. But let's move to my next one now, because if he isn't available from the Detroit Red Wings, I like Emmitt Finney, who is much lower rostered at just 7%. After a couple games down the lineup, Finney has been back up on the top line with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond as of late, and has 4 points in his last 8 games. Finney, Larkin, and Raymond have been just excellent at 5v5 this year, averaging 2.9 expected goals for per 60 and outscoring their opponents 12-6. Finney's currently averaging north of 17 minutes per game on that top line, and that should put him in a spot to succeed on most nights. And he should also start to see some positive regression soon, similar to Patrick Kane, because he is tied with Kane with 3.2 goals scored below expected. And he also has a ton of value in banger leagues, averaging 2 hits per game right now. So I like Finney in standard formats and extended formats. No matter the format, I think he's a good play in deeper leagues right now. And just the way the schedule lines up for the Red Wings over the next 2 weeks, I like both of these guys a lot. Kane obviously can turn into a much longer-term pickup. Finney feels like a more shorter-term pickup, but either way, up until Christmas, the schedule lines up beautifully here for the Detroit Red Wings. They, obviously the games are great, but they also rank 7th in terms of average opponent rating. So really good matchups over that stretch as well. So give me the Detroit Red Wings over the next couple weeks, and these will be kind of a theme for me in terms of just the schedule pickups over the next couple weeks. But Beebs, let's get to your first pickup, a blue liner.
Yeah, no, I will say these schedule pickups are huge because personally, I that is kind of, I do not focus as heavy on that. So if you want to focus on schedule, Brock will hammer that. And yeah, here we are. First blue liner. I'm so excited to finally mention this guy, Brandt Clarke, out in LA. I wanted to come in today and be like, Clarke crushed it on his first night on the power play last night in Washington, but that did not happen. Still, I'm here to tell you, pick up Brandt Clarke if you need D help. Defense is really thin. There's not really standouts that have been taking a step forward that can really help improve your D until just this past week with Drew Doughty going down a week and a bit ago, being out week to week. Long term, Brandt Clarke was expected to take that jump to power play 1, and he wasn't giving it out of the bat. But then comes Monday's practice, and Brandt Clarke is on the top power play, and that's when my excitement starts. Clarke has 12 points, 3 goals, 9 assists in 26 games this year. He's averaging 2 shots per game, and that's all while kind of playing like a complementary role throughout the lineup. But now he is the main guy. LA has really struggled to score, highlighted again last night by a 3-1 loss to Washington where they struggled again. But LA's head coach came out and said Clarke had 1 bad turnover, but we still were incredibly impressed with his game. So should come out and see ice time similar to his 23-50 that we saw on Tuesday. Clarke has 3 points in his last 4 games since kind of jumping up. And a little reminder of what he did last year when Drew Doughty was out of the lineup. We talked about it the last time. I believe that Brock mentioned Brandt Clarke at the beginning of the year. But when he started the year last year without Drew Doughty, Clarke had 11 points in 11 games played. He basically looked like the guy that we expected out of junior, who was just dominating the stat sheet. So what I'm kind of banking on here is we get a little return to that form. If Clarke wants to give us 7 and 11 games, I'm going to be absolutely satisfied with that. As mentioned, Tuesday night, he played 23-50. He's only averaging 22-21 this year. So almost a 2.5-minute jump for Clarke. He's a guy who has that offensive bug in him. It's very rare to find at this low percentage. And someone who was just a matter of, I think we all want him on our roster. It's just we needed to see the usage. So now that we're seeing it there, Brandt Clarke makes a fantastic defensive pickup and one that I'm very, very excited to bring up today here. And I don't expect him to be at 23 by the time we return here next Wednesday.
Yeah, the Kings power plays really struggled this year, doing a lot of 5 forward power play stuff. Clarke gets the bump up in taking over for Quinton Byfield last night. And yeah, like they got to get something going there. And interestingly enough, I was looking for a Kings pickup because their schedule looks really good over the next couple of weeks. Some of the most light night games over the next couple of weeks, which doesn't matter so much for the Blue Liners because you're probably only rostering the minimum. But they got a really nice schedule coming up as well. And Clarke's really the only one that stands out from the Kings. Speaking of the schedule, I got a couple more pickups here, and they're both from the Seattle Kraken, which they don't score a lot of goals. But I mentioned Jared McCann last week, but the Kraken have the best schedule coming up in terms of light nights, the most light nights in the NHL over the next 3 weeks. Really, really good schedule overall. So I like the Seattle Kraken. Again, they don't score a lot of goals, but they got a couple guys on the roster that can put the puck in the back of the net. So I talked about McCann last week. He's still just 28% owned, and I'm bringing him up because that ownership hasn't moved. Because as I pointed out last week, the Kraken schedule sucks right now. Week 9 schedule's terrible, but it gets so much better moving forward. If he's still under wire, he has 2 games remaining this week, although both on busy nights, but it's only 10 and 12 games, so you might be able to squeeze him in. But then obviously if you've got the room for next week, the schedule really opens up. Over the next 3 weeks, they have the most light nights, tied for the second most games overall, and have the 12th easiest opponent rating on average. So McCann has looked really solid his first 2 games back. Looks a lot like himself, racking up 6 shots on goal, 9 shot attempts in 2 games, 6 hits as well, and is second of the Kraken in individual expected goals during those 2 games. So he looks back, he looks healthy, he looks ready to go and start putting the puck in the back of the net. Now moving to Jordan Eberle, also from the Seattle Kraken. Eberle hasn't had a lot of production in the last, as of late. It's just 6 points, 4 goals, 2 assists in his last 13 games. So not great, but he's averaging 21 minutes per game, 2.8 shots on goal, and 4.6 shot attempts per game. Amazing rates there. During that time, however, there have been 5 goals scored below expected with Eberle on the ice, 1.8 of those individually for him coming off his stick. So I do this due for some positive regression, and I have a player rating system that looks at on ice expected goals for per game, offensive driving plays per game, and individual expected goals per game. So basically, you want players that are on the ice generating a lot of expected goals. You want players that are contributing to those expected goals, and you want players that are potentially going to score those expected goals. If you in that player rating system, Eberle ranks 68th among forwards, and of players under 40% rostered, he's 4th overall. The names ahead of him are Patrick Kane, who I already mentioned, and then the other ones are Connor Garland, who's banged up right now, and Kyle Palmieri, who is out for the year. So Eberle has been around it all season, and some of the bounces are going to go his way soon. And the way the schedule lines up moving forward, Eberle should be, producing offense and see the offense come alive here as we lead up to Christmas. But Beebs, who do you got next?
I got a couple low-owned players right here, and 2 that I'm very excited about. One especially for keeper leagues here, but Easton Cowan out in Toronto, currently 5% owned now after last night. Cowan had a Tony Snell-like night last night, which is killing his stat line here. He had 17 minutes of ice time, no points, no shots on goal, no stats. But that's okay. We still love Easton Cowan after last night's performance. Cowan has found himself in and out of Toronto's lineup to start the year, and it's kind of annoying because he's supposed to be kind of their next big prospect. But we're seeing him get almost the Nick Robertson treatment earlier until the last few weeks where we saw Cowan actually get the bump up to Toronto's top 6 with William Nylander and John Tavares, two of the players that you want to be playing with in that Maple Leafs lineup. With that, he also got the bump to the top power play in Toronto, and it's been working quite well for Cowan. Before last game, he had 4 points in his last 5 games. It's now 4 in his last 6, and he had 11 shots on goal. He was averaging over 2 shots on goal before that. He was producing, and he was over 19:30 time on ice. After last night, stats are still fine. Still near 2 shots per game, still over 19 minutes a night, still on that line, and still very good usage. Easton Cowan is a player who thrives when he's in a top 6. He had a record-breaking 65-point game streak in junior hockey, which was very well documented, where he had 106 points in 65 games. So this kid likes to, get his name on the score sheet. And while he's in Toronto, if he's going to be at his most effective, he's going to need to be in a position to score. So while Toronto's struggling across the board, they are looking for answers. And it seems that Easton Cowan might kind of be their fallback right now. And this could be his breakout. I want to get ahead of it. I love guys on top power plays. And at 5% owned, there's really nowhere else you should be looking right now. But let's say you are in a deep league where it's he's been taken. There's another person at that percentage, Maxim Ščebanov. I just wanted to mention really quick here at 3% owned out in the on Long Island. He's currently playing power play 1 in line 1. We watched the pretty inspiring but it was cool Kyle Palmieri clip where he tore his ACL, still got the assist, yada yada. All that did was create a lineup spot for Maxim Ščebanov in New York, and since he's been doing decent. He's played 2 games since. He got an assist last night. He currently has 5 points in his last 7 games. He has 11 shots on goal, and his shot attempts are just going way up right now. He's actually, I believe he has 7 more shot attempts in his last 7 games than he did in his first 8 games. So that's the kind of trends that we like to see for players that, are getting adjusted to the league after spending so much time in the KHL. I got excited about Ščebanov. Previously, he had 67 points in 65 games in the KHL last year. So he's proven he can do it among men. So if you are looking for a below 5% pickup, before we go to our true bottom of percent ownage there, I would suggest looking at either Easton Cowan or my boy Maxim Ščebanov. But Brock, because I've been talking for a long time, who do you got?
Yeah, I really like Easton Cowan, and the shot attempts are really, really solid. I think Ščebanov's going to keep coming into his own. But I want to talk about another goalie. I talked about Brandon Busty last week, and I think he remains a good pickup, although it does look like Petr Kochetkov is going to be back before too long, as I mentioned yesterday. But I think Joel Hofer makes a lot of sense right now. The Blues might not score a lot of goals, but they do play above average at the very least defensively. They've been solid, at least insulating their goalies. They just haven't had great goaltending this year. Hofer had a really, really tough October, but bounced back in a big way in November. He went 2-3-2 with a 241 goals against average, a 913 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. And during that time, he was 13th in the NHL with 8 goals saved above expected. So he is playing extremely well right now. And during the same stretch, Jordan Binnington struggled. He went 4-2-3, but had a 318 goals against average, an 893 save percentage, and 0.16 goals scored above expected. So he is just not really given the Blues much confidence between the pipes right now. So Hofer is just drastically outplaying Binnington, and I think it could earn him more starts moving forward. It's already a 50-50 split, but I think they did not give Binnington a very long leash there, and I gave up 2 goals instantly, got yanked immediately, got Hofer in there. So Hofer should start their next game for sure. And honestly, leading up to Christmas, they have extremely favorable matchups. Of their next 12 games, they face just one team in the top half of the league in weighted expected goals for. And if you add up all the ranks of their next 12 opponents, they face on average the 21st ranked 5v5 average ranked XG offense in the NHL. So the matchups are all basically bottom third of the league offenses. So it lines up really nicely for obviously Binnington as well for whatever starts he gets. But if you're desperate for goalie help right now, 6% roster Joel Hofer I think can help you out. The win equity might not be great with St. Louis. They do struggle to score, but the splits will be solid, and he's going to pick up some wins for sure. So I like Joel Hofer right now. Let's get to your final 2 pickups of the day, Beebs, and we'll send the people on their way.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you one final bottom of the barrel pickup, and this is one that I'm not expecting to obviously stay at this percent, but 1% after yesterday's call up. It's Danil. You might think it's But it's Danil But out in Utah. He is their big prospect. I got really excited seeing him get called up yesterday because he is a 20-year-old, 2023 12th overall pick, and he was recalled after scoring 8 goals and 17 points in his first stretch in Tucson. Pretty decent for the AHL. A lot of guys take a bit to get used to it. But the thing that's really exciting about this kid is he's a 6'6" winger that has size. And according to some of the scouts out there, he can make an immediate impact. And he's both a shooter and a potent finisher. Those are both things that we love for fantasy hockey. So I was, again, excited. But then the quote comes out from head coach that says, "We're looking for a bit of a spark, and he's a pretty darn good player to have. He's going to play with Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther." So I started dancing in my seat because these are the trends we look for when we're looking at 0% owned players. We haven't got top power play yet from Utah, but deep down, I'm hoping he could somehow find his way in there. Regardless, when you're playing on a top line with Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther, you're going to be in a good spot to succeed. You should at least receive 15 to 16 minutes worth of 5v5 hockey because they are the best players on that squad. And with his 6'6" frame, he could make, as I mentioned, an immediate impact and be a piece that could fit in that lineup. They're clearly looking for answers, and Utah wants to win and have some success like they had early on. This guy played 3 years in the KHL with Locomotive, so he has played at a professional level, and he has played amongst men before. The transition should not be too much of a crazy culture shock for him, and I am very interested to see what he can do here. In the AHL, as mentioned, he had 17 points in 19 games, but he also had 51 shots on goal. So he does like to rip the pill. He had 5 power play points, so proved he could be successful there. So if he does find himself on power play 1 and line 1 at 1%, you need to run to the wire immediately. We kind of had this happen with Braden Bowman a few weeks ago, and we watched him shoot to over 30%. So we want to get ahead of these things before they come. And Danil But, we are looking at you, buddy. He is one of the most exciting new prospects to jump up, and Utah is a high tempo team. So I like getting behind this one.
Yeah, and if we take a look here at what Stephen Ellis said about Boot in the preseason, he said, "Don't be surprised if Boot is in the NHL come October." He didn't obviously make the team out of camp. The 20-year-old put up decent 28 points in the KHL during the regular season, establishing himself as a reliable two-way power forward. He's absolutely massive at 6'6", and while he hasn't scored a ton of goals during his pro career, he can absolutely send missiles past goalies. If I were in charge, I'd want him to start in the AHL, learn how to handle the pace, but he thrives in tight area situations, which makes me think he will be a good NHLer. So Steven absolutely nailed that. He did start the year in the AHL. Really, really good AHL numbers so far. But let's finish it off with your final pickup of the night.
Yeah, final pickup. We always like to do a banger pick here. And as mentioned in previous episodes, they're a bit thin. So I am going to re-mention Brock's pickup last week of Ross Colton before I get into my guy. 15% owned. I would like him before the pick I'm about to say, but Brock did mention him. So let's get some new content. But Ross Colton, 4+ shots on goal for 5 of the last 8 games. He has 27 shots on goal in that time. He has 25 hits, so he's averaging over 3 a game. But let's jump over to my other guy. It's Brayden Schenn out in St. Louis. I can't believe with how bad the Blues are doing that we have 2 St. Louis guys on this show. But Brayden Schenn at 10% definitely deserves a shout out because he's been throwing bod, probably out of anger at just how bad his team's been playing. But with recent news that Jimmy Snuggerud and Alexei Toropchenko will be away for a little bit from the team, there needs to be some ice time eaten up in St. Louis. And what better than struggling veteran Brayden Schenn. Schenn wasn't moved up after we saw the original power play units, which was a bit of an upset, but he does rank 46th amongst all skaters in the last 30 days in hits with 28. That's amongst all skaters. And amongst the top 50 in hits in that amount of time, in the last month, he's 4th in shots in that time. He's got 25 shots on goal. So he's filling both stat categories, well, not necessarily filling up the actual stat sheet. In his last 7 games played, he has 3 points. He has 18 shots on goal, so he's just over 2 per game, which is something we like to see. And the way that I like Schenn is he's been a player who in his career has shown to go off for hot stretches. And if you grab him for hits and he gets a couple extra points, it's an absolute bonus while you're in banger leagues. So someone to keep an eye on, more of a spot start play if you're trying to really steal just a couple extra points here and there. Prior to the season, he reached 50+ points in 8 of his last 9 full seasons. So he does have a very strong offensive ability in him. And before I get talking more about Brayden Schenn too much, I will cut myself off. But if you are in a hitting league and looking for someone who could contribute across the board and is, in a lineup that just needs answers and people to fill holes, he could be your guy. But without further ado, I think that was it. Brock didn't want to go Bangley this week because he crushed it so hard last week with his.
Well, I think
double up.
I think a lot of the pickups I already kind of mentioned, like Emmitt, Finny, he provides banger value. So does McCann. Even Eberle's chipping in this year, so didn't feel like I needed a banger league specific pickup. But that is going to do it for this edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. I got to get going. Got a little sidetracked. My daughter decided to show up here in the office. She wants to talk on the mic, but I don't think she's got very good fantasy advice.
They learned she's smarter than me, so that would be an issue.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow with Dylan D. Berthium as we break down the best weekend streaming targets for week 9 of the fantasy hockey season. We'll see you back then tomorrow. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.